Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, I welcome you back to our course of microeconomics and its application, and I am the presenter as well as the course coordinator, Dr. Aparna Samudra. In the previous two lectures that we have discussed, we have talked about the concept of opportunity cost. We have talked about that what do we mean by demand, what are the various determinants of demand. We have also seen that what type of relationship does the price of a product and its demand have, and then we found out the law of demand. We also discussed about that what are the reasons for the shift of the demand curve. Today in this particular lecture, we will be going further and understanding the concept of elasticity of demand. Thereafter, we will be defining what do we mean by price elasticity of demand, as well as we will understand that how it is measured. Then we will see that how elasticity, that is the price elasticity, and the revenue of a firm are related to each other, and then we will be also seeing that what are the various factors that have an impact on the price elasticity of demand. So let us start today's lecture with this particular scenario in mind. Remember learners that in the previous lecture of law of demand, we had said that whenever the price of a product increases or whenever there is a rise in the price of a product, we see that the quantity demanded of that product falls and vice versa. So when we try to apply this scenario or this particular law of demand, then what can be the resultant effects? For example, assume that you are designing websites for local businesses and you are charging rupees 20,000 per website and you are currently selling 12 websites per month. So this is the current scenario. What you see is that your costs are rising. Of course, the cost of production, the labor cost, and of course the opportunity cost of your time that you are spending in designing these websites. Now with the increase in the cost, you consider that let me raise the price of designing per website from 20,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees. This means you are considering a price rise. Now, the law of demand would just tell you that you won't be selling the same number of websites if you raise the price from 20,000 to 25,000. But as a businessman, the question which will come in your mind is that if I am raising the price by 5,000 rupees per website, then what will be the less number of websites that I will be selling in a month? That is, with the rise in price, how many fewer websites I may be selling? And if I am going to sell less number of websites, will it also translate into a change in revenue? Will it lead to a fall in revenue, or revenue may increase because of this? So such a situation in which the law of demand has just told you that there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded, but it has not told you that with an increase in price or with the decrease in price, how much will be the change in quantity demanded. And for any business person or for any application point of view, it is very important to know that what will be the change in the sales that I am making because of a change in price. And this answer is provided to us by the concept of elasticity of demand. So let us define what is elasticity of demand. Elasticity is what? For example, when you pick up a rubber band and you want to stretch it, The more it stretches, we say there is more flexibility or more elasticity. So that scientific concept we are trying to we adopt to understand the concept of elasticity of demand. Let us see the definition of elasticity. We say that elasticity is measuring the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in any one of its determinants. That is, if any of the determinants of the demand, any one of them changes. For example, as we have seen in the previous scenario, if the price of the website increases from 20,000 to 25,000, and because of that there is a fall in demand from 12 websites per month to, let us say, 10 websites per month. So that is the response of the demand, quantity demanded due to a change in price. How much it changes, what is the response the quantity demanded is giving us, how does quantity demand behave, how much does it change with change in any of one of the determinant of demand. If the price changes and because of that quantity demanded changes, we call it as price elasticity. If income changes, then also there will be a change in demand, because an increase in income will mean increased ability to buy the product. Therefore, the demand will change. If price of related goods changes, then also there will be a change in demand. Then we call it as cross elasticity of demand. So elasticity is basically measuring what is the response of the quantity demanded because there is a change in the determinants of the demand. In the course of few next lectures, we will be talking about income elasticity as well as cross elasticity also. But this particular lecture, we are concentrating on the concept of price elasticity of demand. That is, we are trying to see that how does the quantity demanded respond to the change in price. So that is called as your price elasticity of demand. What is price elasticity of demand? I am again repeating, it means how much is the quantity demanded of a good change because there is a change in the price of good. Loosely speaking, we can say it is measuring the consumer's responsiveness to the change in price. That is, as a consumer, what is our behavior or what is our response whenever the price of a product changes? How do we respond? How much of less we buy of it? If price changes by 1 rupee, how much less of it we buy? Okay, so or how much more of it we buy? So it is consumer's response to the change in price. Therefore, we say that price elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. That is, we are going to compare the new price with the original price and then we will get the percentage change in price. Similarly, we will be comparing the new quantity demanded with the original quantity demanded, which will give us the percentage change in quantity demanded. So when we compare the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in price, we define it as elasticity of demand. So the focus here is that how much does the demand change because there is a change in price. So the impact of price and the response of the quantity demanded by the consumer due to the change in price is measured by elasticity of demand. So let us have a look at price elasticity of demand with help of this figure that we have taken. In this figure, as you can see, the demand curve is given by this blue line. It is a downward sloping demand curve. The original price, let us say, is P1. When the price is P1, which we are measuring on the vertical axis, the demand of that commodity is Q1. So that's our original situation. Let us assume that the price now rises by 10% from P1 to P2. What does the law of demand say? Law of demand says that when the price will rise, there will be a fall in demand. So what happens is, with an increase in price by 10%, we notice that there is a fall in demand, quantity demanded by 15%. So there is a response of the quantity to a change in price. So we put it in the formula, which is given as price elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in demand upon percentage change in price. How much is the change in demand? Quantity demanded has changed by 15%, and this has happened because your price has risen by 10%. So 15% divided by 10% will give you 1.5. So we say that the elasticity of demand is 1.5. We will also understand that how do we interpret this 1.5 for us. Going further, in the price elasticity of demand, next question is that how do we measure this price elasticity of demand? Formula we have seen that if the price changes, let us say by 10% we just saw, and we see a fall in demand by 15%, so 15% divided by 10% gave you 1.5. One major method of finding elasticity of demand is called as the midpoint or the arc method. What does it say? Midpoint or the arc method says that we need to find the elasticity of demand by finding the midpoint of both the prices and the quantity demanded. And how do we measure it? We say it is price elasticity of demand is equal to Q2 minus Q1, where Q1 is the original quantity, Q2 is the new quantity. This is your numerator. Q2 minus Q1 will give you the change in quantity demanded. Why? Because Q1 was the original quantity, Q2 is the new quantity. So how much has the quantity changed is Q2 minus Q1. This is divided by the average of the quantity demanded. How do we find the average? New quantity demanded given by Q2 plus original quantity demanded given by Q1. So Q2 plus Q1 is divided by 2. So this will give you an average or the midpoint. Okay, of what? Of the quantity demanded. So Q2 minus Q1, which is giving you change in quantity demanded, divided by the average of the quantity demanded. This becomes your numerator. This we will divide by the denominator, wherein we are seeing the percentage change in price. That is the new price P2 minus P1. So this will give us what? This will give us the change in price. P2 minus P1. This is divided by the average level of price, wherein we are adding up, or we are taking the sum of new price P2 plus P1, which is the original price, and we are dividing it by 2. So this will give you half or midpoint or average. This method of finding elasticity of demand is called as the midpoint or the arc method. Okay, now we'll just see the calculation of elasticity of demand using this particular midpoint method. Let us say again that this is your particular demand curve given by this red downward sloping line D. 3 different price levels are given to you, and at each price level on the x-axis, you are seeing the level of quantity demanded. Okay, now let us say the original price is 20 rupees 50 paise. So this is your original point, where at the price of 20 rupees 50 paise, the quantity demanded is of 9 units. Okay, so your Q1 is 9 and P1 is 20.50. Let us say there is a fall in price from 20.5 to 19.5. So your new price becomes P2, that is 19.5. And at this price level of 19.5, there is again a new quantity demanded. So you see from one point to another point, and we are asked to find the elasticity. Because there is a fall in price, we see this downward arrow. What is the change in price? Change in price is 1. Again, there is a change in your quantity 9 to 11 units, that is at 19.5 price, the demand is of 11 units. So the change in quantity is from Q2 minus Q1, that is 11 minus 9 is equal to 2. We are using the midpoint method, so we'll find the average of the price, that is 20.5 plus 19.5. This is divided by 2. This answer we will get is 20. Okay, learners, I would recommend you start doing this right now in your notebooks so that you remember it well. How have we found the average price? We have taken the new price 20.5 plus original price 19.5. This we are dividing by 2 to give us an average of both the prices, that is the new price and the original price, and you get the answer as 20. Similarly, we will find the average quantity, that is new quantity 11 plus 9 original quantity. This you will divide by 2 and you will get the 11 minus plus 9 is 20. 20 divided by 2 will give you 10. We will substitute in the formula, that is change in Q divided by average quantity. This divided by change in P divided by average price. What is the change in quantity? It is 2 units. What is the average quantity? 10. So 2 divided by 10, this becomes your numerator. This we are dividing it by your change in P, which is 1. 1 divided by average price 20. So 2 by 10 upon 1 by 20 will give us 4. So this gives us your elasticity of demand. And this is how we find elasticity of demand using the arc method, wherein we will be taking the change in price, change in quantity, but for the purpose of your denominators, we will be taking average quantity and average price. Now, as I just told you, that all these answers that you are getting, for example, in the first instance, we have taken their elasticity of demand, answer came as 1.5. In this particular example, we saw that your elasticity of demand answer came as 4. But what does this figure mean? For any layman, if you want to make them understand that elasticity of demand is 4 or 1.5 or 0, they will ask you that what do you mean by these numbers? So it is very important that we understand the interpretation of this price elasticity of demand. We have just said that elasticity of demand, or in terms of price elasticity of demand, it is measuring the response of the quantity demanded to a change in price. Now, when there is, let us say, a change in the price is of 1%, and we see the change in demand to be 5%. This means that for this particular product, consumers responded more to the change in quantity compared to the change in price. Price changed by 1%, but the demand changed by 5%, means the response of the demand was way more than the change in price. This means there was a greater elasticity of demand because the responsiveness was more. So whenever the percentage change in quantity demanded is larger than the percentage change in price, your answer will be greater than 1, and we say that the demand is elastic, means the demand is responding more to the change in price. There is a greater responsiveness of the demand to a change in price. On the other hand, if we see that the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. There is a change in demand due to change in price, but the responsiveness of the change in quantity demanded is less than the change in price. Then we say the demand for that particular product is inelastic. Means that the demand has responded less to the change in price. For example, if the price is changing by 1% and your demand is changing by 0.5%, means your responsiveness to the demand is less than the change in price. Similar numerical examples I've given here also, you can see on your screens, where in the first case, where we are talking about elastic demand, the percentage change in demand which is in the numerator is 0.04, whereas the percentage change in price is 0.02. So the demand has responded more to a change in price, then we call it as your elastic demand. On the other hand, inelastic demand means that your price percentage change in price was 0.02, whereas the demand changed by only 0.01. It changed, but less than the change in price. Then in that case, the answer of your elasticity would be less than 1, and we say that the demand is inelastic. So the demand can be elastic, demand can be inelastic. Another case is where the change in the quantity demanded and the change in the price are the same. Price changes by 0.02, the demand also changes by 0.02. Price changes by 1%, quantity demanded also changes by 1%. Means the responsiveness of the demand was exactly same as the change in price. Then the answer of your elasticity of demand becomes equal to 1. It's mathematical logic that we are using because the value of the numerator is the same as the value of the denominator. Therefore, your elasticity will become equal to 1. That is called as unit elastic. So, elasticity can be greater than 1, it can be equal to 1, it can be less than 1. If the demand changes more than the price, it is elastic demand. If demand changes less than the price, we call it as inelastic demand. If the change in quantity demanded and change in price are similar, we call it as unit elastic. Apart from this, we have two extreme cases as well, where one is a perfectly inelastic demand, as you can see on your screens, a demand curve given by a vertical line. This D1 is vertical. What does it mean? It means that whatever be the price level, price changes, but there is no change in quantity demanded. That is, the demand is not at all responding to the change in price. Price increases, price decreases, but my demand remains the same. It does not fall, it does not rise, it remains the same. That is called as perfectly inelastic demand. And in that case, our elasticity of demand will become equal to 0. Another case is of a perfectly elastic demand where whatever be the price, and in that case, first of all, your demand curve will become horizontal. This D2 line which you see is a horizontal demand curve. Means a very small change in price will change your quantity demanded infinitely. In that case, your demand curve is perfectly elastic. Okay, so what we can interpret here is that if we have a linear demand curve, if a demand curve is a straight line, then you have your elasticity of demand varies along the same demand curve. Okay, the demand curve remains the same, but the elasticity value will change depending on the point at which your price is right now. Okay, so as you can see here, at the midpoint of the demand curve, which is shown by this yellow spot, the elasticity of demand is unit elastic, or it is equal to 1, indicating that the percentage change in demand is equal to percentage change in price. Whereas any price level which is above this midpoint, will indicate a elastic demand. That is, the change in quantity demanded would be greater than the change in price. Any price levels which are below this midpoint will indicate a inelastic demand, showing that the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. So as you move down your demand curve, the value of elasticity is reducing. Okay, why? Because an elastic demand means that the elasticity of demand is greater than 1. At midpoint, elasticity of demand is equal to 1. At inelastic demand, it is less than 1. So as you move down to the demand curve, which is linear, the value of your price elasticity of demand keeps on declining. So what do we infer from this is that at different price levels on the same demand curve, we may find different value of the elasticity of demand. Or in other words, elasticity does not remain constant across the same demand curve. Okay, another important concept that we will be doing now is how is total revenue and elasticity related to each other. What is total revenue? Total revenue is price per good multiplied by the quantity of goods sold. That is price into quantity. Let us assume that price of your product is 5 rupees. You are selling 10 units. How much are you earning from this? 5 into 10 means 50 rupees. So price of the product, when you multiply it with the number of units which you are selling or the quantity which you are selling, what we get is called as total revenue. Okay, so when we are deriving this relationship between total revenue and elasticity, we are assuming that our costs are constant. Okay, so what is total revenue, learners? It is price of the good that you are selling, price per unit, multiplied by the number of units that we are selling. So let us see this very interesting relationship between elasticity and total revenue. Okay, so this for the upper figure that you can see is depicting your demand curve, showing different prices and different quantities. The figure on the lower region of your screen is showing your total revenue in rupees, that is revenue with respect to quantity, price with respect to quantity. What do we see? The total revenue curve is a inverted U. That is, initially this total revenue increases, reaches a maximum, and then it starts declining. So total revenue curve is a inverted U. Okay, and demand curve, which is shown on your upper figure, is downward sloping. Now let us understand the relationship between elasticity and the total revenue. As we know that on the same demand curve, your elasticity is different. If this red point on the first curve, that is on the demand curve, is showing the midpoint. Okay, so above midpoint of the linear demand curve, your demand is elastic, we have just seen. At midpoint, your elasticity is unit, and below the midpoint it is inelastic. So if we are referring to the elastic demand portion of your demand curve, and when you compare it with the total revenue curve, what do we see is that your total revenue curve corresponds to the rising region. Total revenue curve is rising in that particular portion which is corresponding to the elastic demand of your linear demand curve. So what does this mean? It says that when the demand is elastic, and if you reduce the price of that product, your total revenue will increase. So, if a company is in this particular portion of the demand curve of the consumer, where it is showing an elastic demand, if it reduces the price, the total, even though the demand may decline, but the total revenue, which is measured by price into the quantity sold, we will see that your total revenue will increase. So every price cut will bring more change in quantity demanded. Therefore, the total revenue will increase. Okay. Now, if we move to the inelastic demand portion of the inelastic portion of your demand curve, what do we see? We see what is inelastic? Inelastic means that the change in demand is less, or the response of demand is less compared to the change in price. So to the inelastic demand curve, if we compare it to the total revenue curve, we say when the demand is inelastic, what do we see in this portion, learners? If you see this portion, we see in the inelastic demand portion of your demand curve, your total revenue is declining. This means when the demand is inelastic and a company decides to reduce the price, the total revenue will also decline. This means with the decline in price, with the cut in price, even though the demand may increase, but the total revenue may decline because the responsiveness of the demand is less than the change in price. So, what is the application of this particular concept? This means that it is not always favorable for a producer to cut the price in order to increase their sales, because it may increase their sales when the demand is inelastic for their product, their total revenue will overall decline. Okay, and when the demand is unit elastic at the midpoint of your demand curve, your total revenue is maximum. So total revenue of the firm is maximum when the elasticity of demand is what? Equal to 1, or it is unit elastic. So that is your maximum total revenue shown by the red dot on the total revenue curve. So this is how we get the relationship between elasticity and total revenue. Now let us discuss the determinants of price elasticity of demand. We have just seen that price elasticity of demand may be greater than 1, it may be less than 1, but what are the reasons that some products give you an elasticity greater than 1, some give you an elasticity less than 1? Let us understand these determinants. The first determinant of the value of the price elasticity of demand is the substitutability. That is, for the product in question for whose price elasticity we are calculating or discussing, how many close substitutes are available for it. For example, we are trying to find, you are manufacturing, or let us say the case of your websites only. If there are many other people like you who are making websites, means there are many close substitutes or many competitors who are there in the market who are doing a similar job for you, for the people. So if you decide to increase the price and your competitors or close substitutes are not, their prices unchanged, This will have a greater impact on the demand for your product, because with your price increase, people will shift to your close substitutes. So your demand will become more elastic. Whereas if the number of substitutes are less, consumers have lesser options. Therefore, even if you increase the price, they may not be able to decrease the demand so much as the increase in price, because there are not close substitutes available in the market. So substitutability means more substitutes mean more elasticity, less substitutes means less elasticity, because the choices are less which are available with the consumers to shift if there is a change in price. Second is the proportion of income spent on that particular product. If something you are spending a lot of your portion of your income on purchase of a particular product or a service, you will be very conscious about a change in price. For example, if out of your total monthly income, you are spending a lot of amount on petrol, and if petrol prices rise very sharply, you will ultimately become very conscious about the use of your vehicle, because petrol has become expensive. Okay. Whereas if you are spending a very minuscule or very small proportion of your income on a particular product, you will not be very conscious about the change in price of that particular product. Let us say out of your total monthly income, you are spending 15 rupees per month on buying 1 kg of salt. So change in price of salt from 15 to 18 rupees will not make much of a difference to you, because you are spending small proportion of your income. So for all those products where your proportion of income spent is more, the elasticity would be more. Whereas if you are spending a small proportion of your income on something, the elasticity would be less. Then another important criteria which has an impact on price elasticity is whether the product is a luxury or is it a necessity. As the name indicates, if it is a necessity, if you need it, if it is something which is a basic part of our life, even if the price changes a lot, I may not be able to change this quantity demanded so much as the change in price. Okay, therefore the elasticity of demand, I'm talking about price elasticity of demand, it will be less than 1, or it will be inelastic, because even though the price changes by, let us say, 10%, I may not be able to reduce the consumption of it by more than 10%, because it is something which I need it for as a basic need. Whereas if that particular product is a luxury, if it is something without which you can do with, then in that case, the demand would be elastic, because we can do without it, we can live without it. So a sharp increase in the price will automatically lead to a greater fall in the demand. Then time. Whenever there is a longer time period means less elasticity, shorter time period means more elastic. Longer time, let me first explain to you time period. Time period means how much time I am taking to adjust to a particular situation. Okay, when you are talking about, let us say, price of something changes today, immediately you may not be able to change your habits, may not be able to find substitute for that product immediately. So the demand in short period will be inelastic. Whereas over a period of time, we will find some other options, we will develop taste for its substitutes, and will give up the expensive product for the cheaper product. So in a longer time period, the demand will become elastic, whereas for a short period, it will become inelastic. Then whether there is a possibility of postponing the purchase of the product. If something becomes expensive and you're able to postpone it for some period of time, you say, okay, we'll not buy it now because it is becoming expensive. We are expecting to price to remain, we'll buy it later on. We can postpone it. It is not something which we immediately need. The demand would become elastic. Whereas if you are unable to postpone it, you need it right now, even though the prices are rising, the demand will become inelastic. And then last is the level of price, whether the price is high or price is low. This is related to the one figure which we have seen, the linear demand curve. At higher price level, the demand is elastic. At lower price levels, the demand is inelastic. So these are the determinants of your price elasticity of demand. So after this rigorous price elasticity of demand lecture, let us refresh ourselves with this small quiz. I am putting one question to you. This is a multiple choice question. Read it and answer it. What does the question say? It says, if there is no change in quantity demanded in response to price, that is, there is a change in price, but there is no change in quantity demanded. Quantity demanded does not change even though the price changes. In that case, the price elasticity of demand will be A. Unit elastic, B. Perfectly inelastic, C. Perfectly elastic. Which will be the correct option for this question? If the quantity demanded does not change even though the price is changing, then which will be the correct answer? The correct answer would be B. B, that is perfectly inelastic. Remember that extreme case where there is no change in demand even though the price is changing, your demand curve is horizontal. Second question is a true or false question. If a product has large number of substitutes, its price elasticity will be less than 1. This is based on your determinants of elasticity of demand. If the substitutes number available is more, your elasticity would be less than 1. Is it true or is it false? What happens when more substitutes are there? More substitutes means more options available. More options means you will be able from easily shift from one to another. So elasticity should be greater than 1. So the answer is false. More substitutes, more elasticity. Second, again a true or false question. A rise in the price of a life-saving drug will lead to a fall in total revenue for this pharma company. If a pharma company is making a life-saving drug and it increases the price, will it lead to a fall in total revenue? Remember the relationship between elasticity and total revenue. Two concepts here you have to understand. What will be the answer for this? If the price increases of a life-saving drug, what kind of demand it will have? It will have inelastic demand. So what will happen to the total revenue? Total revenue will fall. So that will be answer is false. So after this, let us quickly summarize whatever we have done. We have understood that what is elasticity of demand? It is basically measuring the responsiveness of the demand to change in the determinants of demand. Price elasticity is only talking about how much does the quantity demanded change due to the change in price. So percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage in price, change in price. Then we have seen that how total revenue and price elasticity of demand are related to each other. How TR increases with elastic portion, it becomes maximum at unit elasticity, and then TR declines in the inelastic portion. And then we have understood that what are the various determinants which have an impact on the elasticity of demand. I hope you must have enjoyed this lecture. Happy learning to all of you.